Right, 12 minutes past 8. I'm delighted to say Sue Ronan is with us to look back on the Republic of Ireland's defeat at Hampden Park. Sue, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, guys. How are we keeping?
Good. Mixed assessment from the supporters that we have making contact with us this morning. What was your assessment of how Ireland played against Scotland?
I really enjoyed the game. I have to say, it was a great match between two teams that really went at each other, especially at the beginning, and that's something the fans love to see. It had a real local derby taste about it. I think Scotland came into the game desperate to win. They really wanted to put that result in Dublin, or that defeat to us in Dublin from earlier in the summer. They wanted to put that to bed. So there was definitely an element of revenge there, despite Steve Clarke playing that down. They were also on a high, I think, having beaten Ukraine midweek, so it made for a tasty game, and that's exactly what we got. It started fast and furious. It was energetic. It was feisty. It was on the edge at times. There was tackles flying in. But I think when it settled, we were very, very comfortable. I really thought we were excellent in the first half. We were comfortable on the ball. I thought we controlled the game. We were composed under pressure. The Scotland press was very high. We were able to play out against that press. We showed lots of energy all over the park. We had options on the ball. And we were composed, as I said, defensively, and like, we didn't give the Scots a chance to settle. We got after them as well. We pressed them high, and the front two got after them, and they were backed up really, really well by the midfield three. And I thought they did their job really, really well. It was a big test, I guess, for Cullen and Knight and Malumbi, because they were up against some very experienced Premier League players in the Scottish team. I thought we did really well. They tirelessly backed up the attack and then did their defensive duties as well, got in the blocks, etc. I thought our wing backs caused lots of problems, particularly Doherty going forward. Thought he was excellent. Three centre halves were really, really good. Coped with Dykes really well in the air. Anything that was thrown at them. Nathan Collins was taking the ball out of defence. So, overall, it was a really, really good first half.
Yeah, unfortunately in the second half, obviously, we stepped off a little bit. Do you see much of an evolution in terms of how we're trying to approach these games from the start of the Kenny era? Because, again, one of the charges coming in from some of the supporters are, it's the same old situation. We haven't improved from the start. He's still not getting results. What's going on? Has there been much of an evolution in the style under Stephen Kenny so far?
I think there has. I think it's obvious there to see. I think we were a better team than Scotland. We at least deserved a draw on the night, I think. It didn't go well in the second half, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in more detail. But I've definitely seen, an evolution in this team. I'm encouraged by them. The last three performances have been very good. We are still a young team. I know, some of the players have been around a while now, but they're still very young, and they're maturing under Kenny, I think. I think they're growing. But they do need to start backing that up with results, because at the end of the day, it is a results-based business. I think we need to start eliminating these defeats in matches that we do dominate, or against teams that we should be beating, the likes of Armenia away, the likes of Luxembourg at home. Because, when you're losing games, obviously that's going to sap the confidence. But I think the team is grown, and we're only going to get better. I think the future does look bright. But of course, at the end of the day, we do want to win matches as well.
And that's the key thing that will be put against Stephen Kenny constantly. Like the way you described that first half there, it's this great half for Irish football, and they lose the game. So what happened in the second half that Scotland were able to regain control of the match?
Yeah, and I've been like everybody else, I suppose. You're scratching your head. It wasn't really that. It wasn't tactically that it went wrong. I don't think, in my view. I think we started the half okay, the first couple of minutes, but then conceding that sloppy goal within 5 minutes. That does knock a bit of confidence, I suppose. Players are probably thinking to themselves, "Geez, this is happening again now." So that's not helpful. But I think we did react well. But it really was a sloppy goal to concede. Doherty put in, a half of an attempt to block a cross. Hendry had ghosted into the box. I think Egan had him in his sights, but then sort of got drawn to the ball for a split second, and it's in the back of the net. So, that doesn't help. And we we did gather a little bit after that. We had a really great chance, I think, with Parrott. We got on a great counter-attack, some great pace from Obafemi, and he really picked out a great ball to Parrott, because in the first half there was a similar situation. We probably didn't make best use of the ball, but Parrott really should have scored, and he probably knows it himself, but it seemed to get stuck under his legs, and maybe that's a sign he's not scoring so many goals. At club level, he didn't have that confidence, but if that goes in, it's a different game again. But we were certainly in it, but I think Scotland definitely got in our faces more in the second half, and we didn't deal with that. They started to win the midfield battles, particularly. Our midfield three were excellent in the first half. Maybe they struggled a little bit in the second half. Cullen was on a booking, maybe didn't help him. And I don't know, maybe it's just that experienced players and getting in our faces, and we weren't able to deal with it, and it was a shame. And then, of course, giving away a silly penalty late on. I think for me, all the substitutions together, I think Ogbene came on early enough, but the 3 substitutions in the 75th minute, I know you're going for broke at that point. You're looking to try and, to get something out of the game. But I think that disrupted our rhythm a little bit, and we weren't really the same after that. So what happened? I don't know really. We definitely have dropped our standards. Scotland raised theirs. The crowd got behind them. They got in our faces more. We just weren't able to deal with it. And maybe that little bit of quality there to see out the games, and the execution just wasn't there. That's something we do have to improve on going forward, and we need to improve on it quick.
How do you do that?
How do you do that? Well, you just keep going back to doing what you're doing, the training ground, I guess. And yeah, I mean, it's up to the coaches to try and help the players through those difficult moments. I think, as I mentioned, about the experience in the Scotland team, and it does, it definitely helps in matches. They've players playing at that higher level. They can bring off maybe similarly level players from the bench. We probably are a little bit shy maybe in certain areas from the bench. We weren't able to affect the game. Our subs weren't as much as we wanted. But yeah, it's a tough one. We just keep doing what we're doing, I guess, and try to get over that hump. That's the problem for us. We've taken the lead now. Thinking that's the third game and we've lost it, so that's going to haunt the players. But they need to try and get over that and get through that and get the win, and maybe and realize that they actually can do it.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of hard luck stories.
There is.
You go back to Portugal, how brilliantly they played that night. Even the away game in Serbia, Slovakia, their best performances have been against good opposition away from home. Yet there's nothing to show for it. Yeah. And maybe it is that bit of, listen, Stephen Kenny said he'd never said it done of the players, so I don't think we should ever go to that. But I asked Jason Knight about the occasion. He said, I've played big games in the Aviva. Like the intensity of that game on Saturday night, I'd say he hasn't experienced too often before. Yet for Scott McTominay, that's a run of the mill thing. It's a release for him going up to play for Scotland from what he's been at Manchester United. And John McGinn as well, really in the second half looked like a player playing at a different standard.
And those guys, McTominay and McGinn particularly, they relish occasions like that. They do it week in, week out. They, as you say, McTominay, that's his game at United, getting in the faces of the opponent, disrupting the rhythm, trying to put your opponent off. And McGinn is exactly the same at Villa. And they're experts at doing it. And as much as our guys are saying maybe they're doing that week in, week out, they're not used to that type of intensity. I don't think they are anyway. And a lot of these guys started off their career during COVID times and played many games without fans, so maybe they're only facing these type of occasions now. But I think really when you're analysing overall, you got to go back to the beginning of the campaign, and we got off on the wrong foot, losing away to Armenia. I mean, that was a disaster. Let's face it, that's a team we should be beating. And you saw Ukraine, practically a reserve team, beat them 5-0 the other day. And I think anything less than a good victory for us tomorrow night would be a disaster. But that sort of sets the tone then for the campaign. You're chasing your tail all along, and then you're only getting 4 points from the top 2 teams. That's not good enough. It's left us well off the pace, and you're starting to chase your tail the whole time. But it's getting on the right side of all those small margins that we need to do going forward, I think, to try to turn this around.
Ireland have, in those games away from home, quite often been a counter-attacking team. Tomorrow night at home against what we perceive to be weaker opposition, do Do you expect a different style of football? Like, does that midfield, presuming he sticks with Cullen, Malumbi and Knight, like, do they have enough about them that they can control a game and dominate a game and have 65% possession and have that pass that'll open up an Armenian defence if they sit right back?
You'd expect Armenia to sit right back and maybe try and hit us on the counter, because, you know, they're on 3 points, we're on 4. If we don't beat them tomorrow or get a draw, we could be the one going down. So they have a chance of staying up as well in this group. I think in the past it was probably, we might have said about Irish teams in general, we found it difficult to break opponents down, but I think this team has enough about them now to do that. You know, I think Malumni's been super. He can pick out a pass from midfield. We have our wing backs can cause problems. You know, we can, as I mentioned, our centre halves can come into midfield and add an extra player. We've got real ability up front now. So, you know, I think we definitely have enough to beat this team. It's going to be a different style, as you say, because they will sit back. And we might be patient at times, and that's where we're going to need the crowd to get behind the players, and they're going to have to dig deep within themselves as well, and not let the heads drop, you know, the confidence levels go if things are not going well, or if they're not getting the early goal. But you know, I can't see anything more than anything less rather than a victory, you know, 3 or 4 goals tomorrow night, and we badly need it.
Maybe it's not the midfield we need to be talking about as opening up the opposition. Maybe it's the defence. Like Nathan Collins. This guy's at a different level. Just strolling around, haven't done the last night, stepping forward, skipping through challenges, picking out passes.
He's looking like a magnificent player. He really is. And you're right. He just strolls out midfield. He just glides by players and, you know, and picking out passes and then getting on the end of them, or looking to get on the end of them in the box. He's been a real find during this campaign. And I think he has a really good future ahead. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him as time goes on, because he's a really, really good player. The 3 centre halves are very good. They were very solid. And I mentioned the wing backs as well. You know what you're going to get from McLean. He gives 200% every game, you know, and never lets Ireland down, in fairness. And on the other side, then you have that little bit of quality going forward from Doherty. He's a little bit suspect, or maybe more suspect defensively than he is going forward, but he hasn't played too many games either, in fairness. I don't think he's played any actually for Spurs this season. Hopefully he's fit to start tomorrow, because he definitely adds something going forward. But look, we have ability all over the park now. It's about us trying to cut out those errors in the games, or eliminate those defeats and matches that we should be winning. And I think anything less than a comprehensive victory tomorrow won't really finish the campaign on a good note for us.
No, it's a fair point. You were talking about Malumbi, and I think it's fair to point out the change in Malumbi since he started to get game time. He's now playing under a manager who signed him and wants him, and it's really worked out for him. And we can see the knock-on impact of that. Now, that's not to say he didn't play well enough to get in the Ireland's team before that, but the value of players playing all the time for a team like Ireland.
Yeah.
Can you just talk to us a little bit about that? Because it feels like the more players we have playing at whatever level, the better it is. Even Jason Knight, who is down one division below at least where we think he should be playing, the value of him playing week in, week out can't be overstated at this point.
Yeah, no, players need to be playing. It's as simple as that, you know, and it's at every level. I mean, you even see with the women's national team, you know, Vera's going to pick the players that are playing. And no matter how good a player is, if they're sitting on the bench and they're not playing week in, week out, you know, you're not going to be as sharp. You're not going to be as you know, on top of your game. You're not going to be as match fit. And I think that was the reason Stephen left Shane Duffy out. Now, mind you, as he said himself, he contradicts himself a little bit with Doherty, but Doherty is very fit at the moment because Spurs are doing super additional training under Conte. But it's so important, especially for midfield players, you know, to be on top of the game, and because that's the engine room and that's where you want to create. You know, that's where your creativity most is going to come from. So those players need to be playing week in, week out, and you can see the difference in Malumni. He's always been a super player, but now, as you say, he's playing at a team where he's getting game time, he's being valued, and he's really shown his quality. And I thought he was excellent on Saturday. I really did.
Before we let you go, it'd be remiss of us not to talk a bit about Clare Shine, who has announced her decision to retire from football. She is only 27, but it's been a jam-packed life that Clare Shine has led, and her statement is very heartfelt. She talks about her happiness and well-being needs to come first, but she's excited to begin the next chapter of her life. I know you would have worked with Clare Shine at various stages across her career. Can you just talk to us a little bit about the shift that she's put in?
Do you know what? Clare is one of the most talented players, naturally talented players we ever had here. Like she was part of that team, Noel King's team that won the silver medal, the under-17s in Europe back in the day in 2010, and then went to the World Cup. She was one of the younger players, a couple of years younger than the Denise O'Sullivans, Megan Campbells, who were the main players at the time. So she didn't get a lot of game time, but that's how long she's been involved. Before that, even at club level, she just scored goals for fun. At regional representative level here in tournaments that we had, she scored goals for fun. She always had the talent. She then was part of our under 19 team that got semi-final in 2014 of the European Championships under Dave Connell. Again, scored a couple of vital goals against a couple of big teams. Always a great goal scorer, a great finisher, a lovely kid. Yes, I had her in and around the squad with myself. I think I did cap her actually. Then she went to Scotland. I know she got a bad injury, I think, with the 19s when Katie just got through to the national team. Claire was sort of next to come up, and I think she might have broke her leg or something and was injured, so missed out for a while. But what a talented player, and yeah, she's had a lot going on in her life. But look, it was a heartfelt statement. It was sad to see her finishing her career, but she's doing what she needs to do for herself, and she's right. And I'm sure she's got lots of great people around her and her family and friends and in the club. I know Glasgow City are great. I know the girls that own that club, and they really look after the players. So, I'm sure they're looking after her well. And I think she's going to stay involved in the club. I'm not sure to what capacity, but a great talent. And she's done great things for Ireland at all the age levels over the years. So I only wish her well in the future.
Yeah, it is important that people who come forward and talk about their mental health are given the space to tell their story, and that we try and use that story coming out to understand the pressures that the next generation are coming through. Because for in many ways, women's full-time professional sport, soccer in particular, is a new sport, and it comes with new specific challenges that we haven't experienced before. So when someone like Clare comes forward and tells her story, we need to listen, and we need to implicate the lessons of what she's saying into how we deal with the younger kids coming through now.
Absolutely. And, I read her book there when it came out a few months ago, and I'll be honest with you, it brought tears to my eyes reading it and stuff. She was so honest, and the things she went through, and like and I'm sure many other people involved in the game here, apart from her close family and circle of friends, had no idea what she was going through. And when you think back, that she was going through those things, and, we were around at the time, we didn't know, and she couldn't reach out for help or didn't feel she could. And it just made me sad, to be honest with you. But, she's been so brave. She's come forward. She's spoken so well. Anytime I've heard her speak on TV, on the radio, in her book, she was so honest. And it is very important because, yes, girls are facing that more and more now. And maybe younger boys at that age are in professional clubs. They have maybe a better structure around them to deal with those type of pressures, whereas our game is a younger game. It's not at that level yet. So girls like Clare and others, that are facing issues like that, they do need support, and it's important that they speak out, or it's important that we as coaches or people that they're playing with can try and help them as much as possible. But yes, it was great to hear her tell her story, and hopefully it inspires other girls who are going through similar issues, and boys, of course, to speak up and seek help, and the help is always there.
Yeah, we wish her the very best in her retirement. Sue, great to have you with us this morning. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Take care. Bye-bye.
It's Sue Ronan giving us her thoughts on the Republic of Ireland and their defeat at the